And here we are, ready to create our landing page. In the last lesson, we did a quick introduction to the different type of libraries that we're going to be working with. Now that we're ready to create our first page, we need to make a decision. Okay, what is the first library type or type of library that we're going to be creating? In this case, our first library is going to be a feature library. Why a feature library? Because according to the definition of a feature library, it's the one that actually implements a Smart UI component to solve specific use cases. In our scenario, our use case is actually implement the landing page. But wait, we just introduced another term here that we mentioned before, but now we are about to start using it, and it is the Smart UI component. So what is this? It might sound a little bit complicated, Smart UI component, but don't worry, it's pretty simple. Our definition for a smart component is going to be any component that actually inject any services through its constructor. If you inject a service, you are a smart component. Simple as that for now. So finally, we are ready to create our first feature library. And in order to do that, we need to open Angular console, then go to the Generate tab, and then from here, search for a library option that it should be under Norwell schematics. You can also filter here, type library, and then you see there are two different types of libraries. One is coming from the schematics from Norwell, another one from Angular schematics. Make sure that you select the one from Norwell schematics, okay? So click on it. Then we're gonna start answering questions here. First question is the name. Now, one thing that I would like you to learn about this field is that it supports folder creation. For example, if you do something like this, landing feature, it will actually create on the libraries this folder here. As you can see down here, it will be libs, landing, feature, and then everything else related to that library. There is a reason why we added this landing prefix here, or landing folder, and soon enough you will understand better why. For now, let's just continue. In the directory, we don't have to change anything. We want to create a module, so this is true. Let's go ahead to the optional fields and make sure that we have SCSS selected. Okay, perfect. Now, this library, we want to make it lazy loaded and also should contain its own routing. So in order to accomplish that, we have to change this to true. We also have to change lazy to true. And don't worry, eventually we're going to explain more why we select these options and how they affect the creation of the library and the workspace in general. But for now, don't worry too much about it. We are just missing one important step when it comes to lazy loading. Usually when you create a library that's going to be lazy loaded, you need to specify also which is the parent module. And in order to do that, you come back here where it says parent module, click on it. And because we only have one application at this point, it's very easy, right? We just select it and that's it. At this point, the schematics of Norwell know how to connect our library with our application. And of course, I'm going to explain you what I mean by that once our library is created. So with all these selections in place, we go ahead and click generate and our library should be created. Again, double check how the first line is actually the command that gets executed. Okay, just in case that in the future you want to do this directly from the console. Okay, now it says that the process completed successfully. We can see here. So now let's really understand what just happened, right? Okay, switch back to Visual Studio Code or your IDE and let's investigate all the changes that happen here. The first thing that you can see is that now on the libs folder, there is a landing page, a landing folder, and also a feature folder. This feature folder is the actual library. Here is where the library code is going to live. As you can see, feature, source, lib, and we have our Angular module created. If you open it, we see that's pretty simple, right? It's prepare, because we told it, okay, we need routing. So it added this router module for us, and it just gave me a really nice starting point here, commented out, just in case we want to start adding new routes to it. Okay, so what other things happen here? Okay, let's close libs for now, and let's go ahead to the Angular JSON file. If we open this file, here on the projects, we will see the following. We collapse these two. Now we have a new project added to the Angular JSON file. Among other things, this object right here tells Angular CLI how it needs to build the project and test it. Moving on, we get to this nx.json file. This file specifically from the Norwell team, basically this file is used to actually establish dependency constraints between the different projects using tags. We did not use any tag in this library, but we'll eventually get there. As you can see, we have this new entry right here. And now we get to the tsconfig JSON file. Here, there's a very nice addition. So when we created our library, the schematics actually came here and added this entry for us. This is super useful. This actually helps you a lot when you import this library to another application. But the thing is that everything is done through this key that you see here. So even if you change the path later on, this library to someplace else, you just have to come to this file, tsconfig file.json, and then come here, change to a new path, and that's it. One of the benefits, of course, but it's not the only one, because this way of sharing the library is going to help us a lot when it comes to encapsulation. And that's it. Those are the changes that happen every time we create a new library. But let's go over them really quick. First, a library gets created somewhere inside this libs folder. It depends on how deep you create your library, of course. Then, the project gets added to the Angular JSON file. Also, the same project gets added here to the nx.json file. And last, the tsconfig gets a new entry on their path that points to the index file of the module that we just added. Every step I've shown you so far are default steps every time we create a library. But when we create a library with the parent module, and in this case with lazy loading, we have something else that the schematics do for us. So if we go to the front-end application and we open the app folder, go to the app module, check this out. We also have a routed entry that lazy load the module that we just created. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, now that we have an understanding of what the Angular console and the Norwell schematics did for us when we create this library, now it is time to check if it actually works, right? So in order to do that, let's open the console and let's fire up the development server for the front-end application. We do that by typing ng serve, enter. This usually takes a minute, so you can just hit pause the video here and then come back when this process has completed. Hopefully, you get the same output that I got here. If you got any error, please go ahead and fix them before you continue. Okay, it says that everything went well. So now let's go back to the browser and check if that's really true. If we open Google Chrome, in this case, you can open your preferred browser, of course. We can go to localhost 4200, right? We already saw this page. This is the initial page that we get when we create a new application using Norwell schematics. But now what we really want to know is if our library can be loaded. In order to do that, let's go back to Visual Studio Code and let's see this. Okay, it says that if we go to this route right here, landing feature, which we are supposed to get the landing feature module. Let's try that. Okay, let's copy this, go back here to the browser, / landing that feature, enter. What just happened? This is supposed to work, right? But we're still getting the same page. Why is that? Okay, let me explain it to you. If we go back to Visual Studio Code and we go back to our library, okay, we see that we have the default module. And if we go to default module, everything here seems to be okay. But what do you think we're missing here? We don't have a component. We don't have a component to show here. So yes, we're loading the library and everything is fine, but Angular doesn't know what to show at this path because the landing page is actually load this module, and this module does not have any component defined yet. So that is exactly why you don't get anything different on the screen. So let's fix that, shall we? Okay, in order to do that, let's switch back to the Angular console. Close here, and then go back here. We have the projects button. Okay, as you can see, now in addition to the front-end end-to-end and front-end application, we also have now a new entry, which is a library. And this is a very handy way of creating components. You just open this tab here and then go to this button, generate component, click on it, and then again, let's start answering questions. Remember that we said that feature libraries are composed mostly of smart components, or at least contain smart components. Let's make a decision here. There are different ways in which we can save these components. Some people prefer one name or the other, but for this course, we're going to save every smart component under a containers folder. So in our case, we're going to have a containers folder, and then our component is going to be called landing. Okay? Then again, we go down here to optional fields, and I always go back here and change this to SCSS. Okay? We don't have to change anything else. And that's it. We can just hit generate. Okay. Our component was already created, so let's go back to Visual Studio Code and check it out. Now, under the lib folder, we have a containers folder and a landing component. Here it is. So the only thing that we're missing now is connecting this component with the router. And in order to do that, let's go back here with the module. Where the module is, uncomment this line, and let's update it. Let's remove this one and update this component to be our landing component. We save this, and now if we go back to Chrome, haha, there it is. We have our landing component rendered on the main page. Awesome job. We covered a few things in this lesson. We created our first feature library. We understood what happened when we create a feature library, all the files that get changed once we create the library. We also talked about lazy loading, and we actually create our first smart component. And just to make sure that everything was working, we end up double checking that we were able to see the landing works message in the home page. So in the next lesson, we're actually making this page beautiful.